Good evening and welcome to On the Other Hoof. Tonight we don't have our host again, Luke Elder, who has just hosted Bet Racing Nation, and he did a wonderful job, so well done from all of us. Joining us tonight we have Callum Adele, who returns from last night, where we didn't have such a successful day. And also returning we have Michael Andrews, who's back from his date with Wubia. How did that go, Michael?
It went really well, actually. I had a winner in a 50 to 1/3, and Woodview had nothing.
Oh, poor Wubsy. But just before we begin today's video, we just have a quick look back on today's racing. And I think the main talking point, there were two real main talking points. We'll go with the first one of Ivor Wood, who was very impressive in winning the July Stakes. Callum, do you think he could make up potentially into a Guineas contender next year?
Yeah, potentially. Very impressed today, I thought. Really impressive debut, really built on it and beat a good field. I mean, the horses in behind are the right sort of horses. You consider that Jungle Cat was up there and had finished really well to finish third in the Coventry, which is usually one of the strongest early season races for 2-year-olds. And Bellardo is a horse I still want to keep on the right side of. So, yeah, you've got to keep on the right side of Ivorwood as well. And the fact they're talking guineas already, and there's a lot of hope in the pedigree. I mean, there's Berkshire in the pedigree who hasn't really trained on, but had the potential to train on. And I think that there's plenty of hope there.
And the other talking point would be the Princess of Wales Stakes with the, shall we say, I'd say disappointing run of Arab Spring, who looked to have the world at his feet. I'm not going to say that we can forget him after one run. I think he is definitely worth forgiving today. But it was won by Cavalryman. And do you think there's a form race that we should really take seriously?
No. It was a strange race. I mean, they've crawled for most of it and sprinted for home. I thought D'Souza gave Cavalryman a really good ride, and Cavalryman had been beaten 5 lengths in the race last year on different ground. He does probably prefer softer. But, yeah, I mean, the fact he's an 8-year-old, pretty exposed 8-year-old, especially at that sort of trip, and he's beaten the rest of them, I think was a bit disappointing. And particularly Arrow Spring, who looked beat quite a way out to me, 3 furlongs or so out, which is not what you expect considering they didn't really go much of a pace to really test him out, and he looked beat well out, and so I don't know where to go with him now.
You couldn't blame the ground for me, because at Monson did appreciate soft ground, so you can't, I don't know what, maybe something will come to light. Anyway, we now move on to today's action, where we're covering both Newmarket and the Summer Stakes at York. And we start with a lovely fillies handicap, which, so much enthusiasm for myself when I looked at it earlier. And because it's a handicap, we're going to start with our handicap expert, Mikey.
It's Michael, by the way. Yeah, this is not easy. I must admit, I looked at Newmarkets, and it took me a while to ease into the races. Bragging, I had a look at Bragging's win 2 starts ago, and the 2nd, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th have all won. So that's good for that one. And you can forgive the second last time out on heavy ground, but it looks like he might get heavy ground again. Well, not heavy ground, but soft ground tomorrow. So that's got to be a negative. For the jockey booking, I believe Khaled Abdullah's retained rider James Doyle is going to York. So. Yeah. And Ryan Moore is on the other Sir Michael Stout horse, so that's not a massive negative to seeing Shane Kelly on there. But I think the horse for me is Etab. I also like Free Rein, actually. Just that one took the eye at Newmarket on debut, then Julie went and won next time out. But I think Etab just keeps popping up, Etab, and it just rings true of Mutila a bit, because that horse won a few times, then was a bit underrated when Paul Hannigan switched to ride another horse, and then she went on and run at Royal Ascot. I think Etab is the one to beat. But I like Free Rein. I'm just not sure. He would have to progress further again to take this. But yeah, it's Etab for me. Free Rein is the danger.
Okay, and Callum?
Yeah, I think it's quite a decent race. Free Rein, as Michael mentioned, got a pretty decent chance. She was 4th in a Newmarket maiden that was won by Swift Campaign, who's done the form relative justice since. Beldor was in behind, who's done the form considerable justice. So yeah, off 75 she could be thrown in. It's just whether she likes the ground. I think the ground's a worry for Provenance, because I don't think she handled Good to Soft too well when she was 3rd behind Reed Cutter at Sandown. She won at Kempton like a really good horse though, and her pedigree is fantastic. But as I'm going to mention with Echelon and later on with Integral, I'm just not sure that she's going to handle the softer ground well enough. I think she wants faster, and that would be enough to put me off. Etab again has the ground to prove, but she beat a good horse in Halation last time out. That horse went to the sales yesterday and was sold for 120,000. So, I mean that's decent form and a decent price for her. If I went for one at a price, I think Airtex is worth another chance. Again, I'm not sure about the ground, and I think that's the recurring theme of this race. But she was disappointing last time out as favourite, but she was quite keen, and she maybe needed a stronger pace. Hopefully she gets that here. But before then, she beat Token of Love, and that form is really strong. And before, well, she'd won 3 in a row, and she looked a really good filly and better than 87. So she could surprise at 12-1 if she can forgive that last run, and I'd give her a chance.
The one that I had a look at, I mean, for me, I looked through the field and I tried to look for a horse that likes soft ground, and I think I found one at quite a big price in Hot Coffee, who I'm going to forgive the run last time out of Royal Ascot. She was drawn on the wrong side and didn't run her race, but the piece of form that I quite liked was the 4th to Chate at Haydock, where she ran a really good race and was hampered with that furlong to go. And I just think at 20-1, she is overpriced for a stable that is in really good form. So, and I probably will put that up as a win selection actually at 20-1. I think Hot Coffee has got a really good chance in this. And we now move on to a race that caused a smile, I'll say, beforehand when Callum made a very good point. It is now the Duchess of Cambridge Stakes, but Callum made the point. I'm going to let him make it.
Yeah, it's disgraceful. Duchess of Cambridge has taken the name of the Cherry Hinton in 32 red style, and yeah, looking through the past winners of this race, I think I made the point just before we went on air that there was a lack of horses that went on to progress, and hopefully, potentially, we could see one that bucks the trend here, because High Celebrity made an unbelievably impressive debut at Chantilly, and she probably didn't beat too much. I mean, I didn't look at the bare form, but the force come out since and been beaten about 4.5 lengths into the same position, or 2 lengths or so. But she was so impressive, and she could have won by about 15 lengths. The actual margin was 2 because she was so heavily eased down, and the final furlong she just cruised. And there's nothing in the race I think can beat her. Iron Beautiful's form in Ireland I think is pretty weak. First 2 starts I thought she was pretty modest, and then she popped up in a Curragh Group 3 and won a decent price, but she just set the pace that day, and I don't think she's particularly special, and she's probably the one that's best of the rest. So I think High Celebrity wins this very comfortably, and at evens I think that's actually a really backable price. I'm really tempted. If she drifted any more, then I'd certainly be backing. 6-4 I think would be an absolute steal on this horse, because I think she's just a cut above a really modest field.
I think she was 6-4 at some point. Yes,
7-4 open, 7-4, which is a missed opportunity.
I wish I took that. Michael, what do you think of this race?
Yeah, I had a look at this race quite closely, and just going on what Callum said. Of the former that has come out of High Celebrity race, only 3 horses have actually run since, and none have impressed. But none of the first 3 have run since. I think it was only the 4th, and something later on. I think maybe the 7th and the 8th have run since, but none of them are impressed. But I think that once again, it's a bit like the Wow Signal, who won so impressively. It didn't matter what was behind her, even though Jungle Cat's obviously come out and ran really well, because that horse was good 6 lengths clear with about somewhere between 2 furlongs, 1 furlong left to go, and was so eased. I think High Celebrity should definitely be the one to beat here. Andre Fabre knows what he's doing with these kind of horses. The main danger for me would be Arabian Queen, who ran really well behind Anthem Alexander and the Queen Mary, and I can't really see anything else getting involved, but it looks like a penalty kick for High Celebrity, and I have to agree with Callum.
I basically agree with everything that both of you have just said. I also agree with Michael on the fact with Arabian Queen, who was so close to Anthem Alexander. Basically, the debut performance of High Celebrity was just so impressive. The fact that Maxime Guillon took 1 look round, took another look round about 4 strides later, and he was about 6 lengths clear, and he's thinking, oh, I can pull up already. It just shows how much of a quality performance it was, and I just think she's the one to beat. If you can get even money, that would be... I don't normally back odds, don't normally back at even money, but in a race like this, I think that is a very good price. Also, just quickly before we move on to the next race, our very own esteemed host Luke Howard described himself as one of these horses in this race. using the Aina Brown trained I Am Beautiful, which I'm not exactly convinced about myself. Now we go to York for a Group 3 fillies race, and it's a summer stakes, and we're going to let Michael start here because I know which horse he's going to talk about, and he actually put this up as a 16-1 nap winner. She's not that big a price, but will Emerald Star be the one to beat here, Michael?
I've looked at this race a few times now, and I've really been open with what I've thought about this horse. And on German Racing Review, we've managed to just get a quick line from Dennis Schergen, who says that he doesn't think the 6 furlong is going to be a problem for Emerald Star, but I honestly think that this is the only thing that will get her beat tomorrow, because there's nothing else in the race that really sticks out as a progressive horse like her. If we go back to her third over 1,500 metres, 7.5 furlongs, the horse that won that is Meerjungfrau, who was going to run in the Prix de Diane in France, but has now been shipped over to America to run over there with Graham Motion. I must admit, a few of us are a bit upset about that because this is a really good horse, and the horse that came second won the 1,000 guineas the next time out. The horses that beat Emerald Star were very, very good horses in Germany. Then she went out and absolutely, dotted up in the Group 3 at Lingfield, beating some pretty decent types, including horses that were older than her. I am just worried about this drop in trip. I think they could just go too fast for her because the way that she ran at Lingfield last time out, it got to the kind of the 1.5 furlongs out, and she just wasn't going on. There wasn't an injection of pace at that time. And then it took her for the last furlong to really kind of go clear. So that is really the only thing I can see beating her, because I just don't think there's anything good enough in this field. Joyeuse was pretty much had the run of the race, Haydock, and then was turned on at a very short price, beaten quite emphatically by Majestic Queen in the Group 3 at Leopardstown the next time. I just don't think there's anything else in the race that could beat it. It's the trip for me that is the biggest worry. And but still at 8-1, that's still a very decent bet. Just going on to what Dennis Schergen said, I'll just get the actual quote up. He said, "She went really nicely and we are really happy with her. She won easily last time, so we're really optimistic. When asked about the 6 furlongs, no, that shouldn't be a problem. She is fast enough." So I think you've got to be on Emerald Star. There's just nothing interesting in that race, and I feel like I've talked about her for enough now, but I just can't see her being beaten. So on me and Sean go on the Emerald Star train tomorrow again.
And exclusive line there for Jeremy's review as well. Callum, we were talking about this race earlier, and we both agreed that we felt that Joyeuse was a bit too short in the market.
Yeah, I can't have Joyeuse. I think she's going to always be overbacked just because of, for obvious reasons, being related to Frankel. And yeah, I was going to mention her race at Haydock, which she won over 6 furlongs, which her first time she stepped down to stick 6 furlongs since she finished being 6th in the Cheveley Park, and she hadn't really gone on as I'd hoped as a 2-year-old, and she didn't really need to take to really improve to win that. I didn't think, and she got a perfect run, settled in rear. They went off way too quick out in front, and she picked up the pieces. And her and Gathering Power both been beaten in that Leopardstown race that they ran in last time out. She ran okay, Joyeuse, but she just needs a fast pace to aim at, and whether she's going to get that's open to debate. And I think she just needs everything to fall right. And if a horse is 5-1 and you need everything to fall right, I don't think it's really a backable price. But that Haydock race, Perfect Blessings, who was 3rd in the race, she was right up with that pace, and it was a very, very strong pace, and she had no chance. She was beaten 5 3/4 lengths by Joyeuse, but she should have been a lot closer. The form in behind this season, she was 3rd to Evita Perron, who's Frank form considerably. Penny Drops as well has done really well since, and her 5th last time out at Sandown in a better rate over 5. I think entitled to a lot of respect. She's only rated 94 at this stage, but I'll be really surprised if she can't rate a hell of a lot higher, and 25-1 is a really big price for her, and I'm quite sweet on her at that price. But I take everything on board about Emerald Star. I think on this ground, though, over 6 furlongs, I think she's worth taking on just about. I mean, if it was 7, I think she'd be the one to beat without any doubt. But she looks a horse that stays pretty well, and obviously she's been running over a mile before that run at Lingfield, so I'm surprised she's down to 6. But Germany won the race in 2012, and the 2 wins in between that were by Ladies of Forever, who obviously has to go in with a chance again. But Bar that, it's going to be quite fast out there, and I think Perfect Blessing should be fine on the ground. And 25 to 1, I think she'll totally outrun those odds.
The funny thing is, I actually agree with the pair of you on both them selections. I did think that Perfect Blessings was one that was definitely overpriced. I mean, she was never they were going too quick for it at Sandown, and she was outpaced that day. And you look back to the run at 6, and you'd think then, oh, she might be trapped. Then you remember the Haydock run; she went off too quick. I just think at 25 to 1, she's definitely each way value in this race. And I do think that if Emerald Star handles the step back down to 6 furlongs, I think she will take a lot of beating. As Michael said, Mirjam Frau is a very good horse. I'm surprised that she's gone to America, actually. I thought she'd have gone really close in the Prix de Diana. So, or Prix de Diana even. Let's say this is German equivalent. Before I go on to the next race, if you've got any questions about today's racing, if you've got any selections, please get them in to either myself at Adam Webb 121, my tent or yours, or Callum Adele. We'll read them out at the end of the show. We now go on to the feature race of the day, and it's the Kitco Falmouth Stakes. And we've got a bit of an issue, we say, because if it's going to rain all night, there is the potential that not just Sky Lantern would be pulled out, there is the potential that Integral may be pulled out. And we're going to go to Callum first, who I think has got a very interesting point about Integral. So I'm going to let Callum take the lead on this race.
Well, I mentioned in the first race on the Newmarket card about Provenance, and Provenance Integral obviously both out of Echelon, and Echelon herself was beaten on both her starts very convincingly on soft ground, and Integral doesn't necessarily seem a horse that will relish soft ground. All her runs, all her best runs in particular, have been on fast, good to firm ground. The Goodwood run on decent good ground was probably their worst run as well. So, albeit over 10 furlongs. But look, I think she's a real Group 1 star in the making, and if the ground was fine and good, I think she's got the beating of Sky Lantern. I think she can overturn that length that she had in the Sun Chariot last year, because she's an improving filly, improving at a fast rate of knots, and that Wins the Forest win was, or whatever it's called now, is it Duke of Cambridge? That's it. The Duke of Cambridge. It's changing names again. Bloody Cambridge. That was really impressive. A really impressive win, albeit probably not the strongest at pace. L'amour de ma vie set the pace, and so, you know, maybe she just had everything right for her, but visually she was very, very taking. And but on this ground, I want to be against her. And Per Along is a horse that was well beaten in this last year, but has really improved since joining Johnny Murter, and won a Curragh Group 3 on soft ground at a big price. She wasn't expected to win that day, really expected to improve for the run, and she beat some really good fillies that day. And then from the rear, she finished third in the same race of Integra, where she came from well back, and the other two that finished in front of her were well ahead on the pace. So I think there's not much between them. There's certainly not 4 lengths difference between these two fillies, and Per Along I think can get a lot closer on softer ground. So she's been well back tonight. I'll have to back her to win at 8 to 1. I don't really back each way at 8, and especially as there's only 2 places. But I think she's got a great chance tomorrow, because I can't have her getting beat by anything else. Rosina, I think, was very much flattered by how the race panned out last time out, and all her best form is on fast ground, which I think suits her the most. And also, I know all her poor runs have been at Newmarket. At Newmarket, albeit a lot of them on the Rolly, but she was beaten by Lucky Crystal's 2-year-old as well, and that just worries me. I think she just wants a flatter track, and Kiyoshi, I think, has been wanting this sort of ground as well, and she hasn't had it, so she could outrun her odds. But the fact Spencer's chosen Per Along, I think, is significant, and I'd definitely be on her tomorrow, no matter if Integral and Sky Lantern do or don't run.
Yeah, I'd agree with Callum on that, especially with the rain falling and the softening ground. Michael, what do you think wins the Falmouth?
Yeah, I must admit, I feel like I'm being a bit boring here, but as soon as, I think it was Sean tweeted something about Per Along, I just thought, hang on a sec, I found the horse that will actually like soft ground. Because I was going through, I was thinking, no. There's a good chance that you could, if it really does rain again, there's a good chance that everything but Per Along will come out, really. Because Certified, I can't see wanting particularly soft ground. Has won on soft ground before, but I'm not completely convinced by that. Integral, no. Peaceburg is a possibility. Maybe that one will stay in. Per Along, yes. Sky Lantern, definitely not. Kiyoshi, I can't see that one wanting anything less than good ground, and same for Rosina as well. So I had to go with Puralong, who wasn't beaten far by Integral last time out. The ground will suit, should get closer, and also Jamie Spencer's waiting tactics will help if it's heavy ground, surely, because it'll stop the ones in front getting ahead too quickly and gives him time to react. So yeah, it has to be Puralong for me. I think it's price-wise that's noticed that one at 8s. Was 12s earlier on. But I just have to completely agree with them, and I think Mount Nelson are going to have a very good. He's going to have a very good day tomorrow with Emerald Star as well.
I love the face that Callum put then when you mentioned price-wise. It took her along there. But as I'll make a point before we go on to the next race, Callum has beaten price-wise tonight, so well done to that, Callum.
Cheers. Thanks. We'll get to that soon.
We'll get to that soon. But yeah, for this race though, one of the things I thought about was that there's a potential lack of pace in this race, and I've got a feeling that Kiyoshi may go out and make the running and could potentially set it up for Puralong. With the rain, I read that it was going to rain all night, so I don't think definitely Sky Lantern won't be running. And then with Callum's thing about Integral being out of echelon, I don't think she'll run either, and the market could be just completely ruined in this race. Rosina, as Callum also rightly said, the poor runs have come at Newmarket, and I'm sure that Clive Britton said after the Guineas that they would not go to Newmarket again. So why they're here, I'm not sure, and I definitely wouldn't be backing her at 9-2, 4-1. Certify, I fancied at Royal Ascot, but was bitterly disappointing, and it could be for Peaceburg outside. I think this could be a really good placement. If some of these come out, she could effectively be going for third place prize money, and it's fair play to Connections. I'm surprised there's not a few more owners in there taking the initiative and having a go at these Group 1s. I mean, there's only 7 runners here. And I'm surprised, Callum made the point earlier, surprised that Matila's not here, because I thought she was going to be running here. Unless they really didn't fancy, unless they looked at the forecast and gone, ooh, it's going to rain, why waste our entry? It's just a bit baffling. But yeah, I think Puralong is actually the one to be on here. She's the one for me at that prices anyway. If Skylight and Integral don't come out and the rain keeps falling, obviously Richard Hannon on RUK earlier did say that if it kept raining he'd just withdraw Skylight and they go for the Rothschild. But you'd hope one of the big two would stay in so you can get a price on Puralong. And we now go to the final race that we're going to cover today, the 315, the Betfred Mobile Heritage Handicap, which was won last year by a handicapper that I love in Heaven's Guest. And have you found, I'm going to go to Michael first, as we know he loves his big field handicaps. Have you found one that could potentially take this race?
Yeah, I've gone with the outsider. if that's is that good enough? I've gone with Susie's Connoisseur. I also like Eastern Impact, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Susie's Connoisseur has been running really well recently, over trips that are definitely too far for her. For example, she ran after a really long layoff. She was third to Almago, weakened in the closing stages, possibly lacking for race fitness that day, and then was just didn't get home over a mile in the Britannia next time out behind Bourne in Bombay. Dropped back to 6 furlongs. We've got a bit of German form in there as well. She won a listed event at Baden-Baden last August. The trainer doesn't think the ground is going to be a problem. So I think Susie's Connoisseur is very overpriced at 33-1, and I also think someone, Rory Jawami told me that someone's already tipped him, or already tipped. Is it Susie's?
Yeah, it's him.
Him, yeah, I was right. Him up at some decent odds already. It's David Johnson who's already tipped him up at 33s, and I think 33s is a very, very generous price. Of the others, I quite liked Eastern Impact, who won at the Rowley Mile course in May, and then was a bit outpaced, really, to be honest, behind Cedar Sun at York next time out. That was on good firm ground, so the slowing ground will help him catch up to tomorrow. And I think Eastern Impact's a bit overpriced at 16-1. So those would be my two: Susie's Connoisseur, Eastern Impact. Golden Steps is very eye-catching as one. Never been out the first 2 in his 4 starts. Marco Botti is a very, very shrewd trainer. So he would be my third, but he's a lot shorter than the other 2, and I think Eastern Impact and Susie's Connoisseur are the 2 for me.
I mentioned just before we came onto this race that Callum has beaten Price-wise tonight. He's going to side with Charles Molson, and he beat Price-wise into getting a price. So Callum, tell us why Charles Molson is going to win.
Well, I think I backed Charles Molson last time because his
Yeah.
effort behind Eastern Impact on good to firm ground and that cold trophy on the Rolly was a really eye-catching effort. He had to wait for a run for a while, and the front runners just didn't really they didn't catch up. Ones in behind didn't catch up with them. So he's a lot better than the bare form there. He's a hell of a lot better than the bare form way at York last time out in the See the Sun race, where an absolute load of these run again. So yeah, I think soft ground is in particular is exactly what he wants. Just think maybe just doesn't put his best foot forward on fast ground. And when I saw the rain had come and I saw he was in the race, I thought, well, that's 100% the bet, and I'll have a pretty strong bet on him tomorrow. But again, 15-2, I think it's only a fair price now. I mean, he was 12-1 earlier. I only got 9s, and he might drift a little bit. So hopefully. So yeah, I just hold back on if you're going to have a bet on him, but I do really like him tomorrow. I know our fellow pundit slash presenter, Lukey Boy 1325, likes Gameson. And I'd agree with Gameson. He just looks a horse that needs a bit more time. He was fourth again in that See the Sun race. But last time when he was second to Fairy to Heaven, he travelled like an absolute good thing and just caught in the last strides. I just think he needs to be held on a bit longer, and I'm surprised they don't hold him up further because he is such a strong travelling type that they held him up a bit further off the pace, and he might come through and never really idle in front. So I think he's definitely worth a win bet at 11-1, even though he's off top weight. Bar that, I think Royal Seal is very opposable. Just 6 days later, I thought Remember was really worth a chance, but my worry is that her only run on soft ground, she was beaten an absolute mile albeit in a listed race over a mile, but they did excuse the ground, and price-wise has actually gone for Remember, and I just think she's a real doubt on the ground. Bar that, Grieve I think's one to keep an eye on, but I think he wants 7 furlongs. And Susie's Connoisseur is a really good shout, actually. I think I didn't really look at Susie's Connoisseur, but looking at his form when Michael mentioned it, and there's some shrewd people on it, I think that could be a squeak at 33s. And another one I priced, Kickbox, I thought was overpriced back at 6 furlongs. On ground that he likes. He beat Gold Steps, actually, at Leicester over 6. He's a little bit worse weighted off with that rival, but that one's right at the head of the market, and he's a big price at 20s. So, yeah, I've gone on way too long for this race, but it's a really good race, and Charles Molson will be leading it home.
I think when you made the point about Lukey Boy 1325, I think we should make a Twitter campaign for him to get that name back.
Yeah.
I miss that name. It's the name I'll always remember him for. Yeah, I agree with Captain Charles Molson. I thought that the York Run showed plenty of promise. I think the softer ground here will help, and we know that Henry Candy likes these type of horses, and I think he would be the one to beat. And I actually kind of agree with Michael. He's made a really good case on Susie's Connoisseur. There's a couple of others in there. I mean, See the Sun, I was mortified last time out. I did a Tim Easterby to be double, and I got the wrong Tim Easterby to be horse in that double. It was Body and Soul, and I put Ventura Mist in, and I should have put See the Sun in. Considering they were running the same colours, I should have followed that. Almargo, I think, is one that wants 7 furlongs, and I'm not entirely convinced that he'll want soft ground either. Wouldn't disagree with Gamesome as well. I thought he ran a really good race in that York race. Another one that I did look at was High on Life. I mean, he has won on soft ground, but I just think that he's coming to the end of his improvement, for me anyway. And the actual favourite, Royal Seal, I'm surprised that they're coming back in trip. I thought that he relished the 7 furlongs. Even on softer ground, I know it's over 6, on softer ground over 6, but I just felt that 7 furlongs on good ground would be his ideal. So I'm not convinced by him, but Charles Molson would be the one for me. If you've got any questions, this is your last chance to get them in, whilst I rattle through a few right now as I let the page load. Let's just have a look. Ironically, I've just made the point there about Royal Seal, and Phil Dinsdale has asked the question. I think he's trying to be put off. I'm not sure if he's trying to be put off or he wants confirmation, but what's wrong with Royal Seal dropping back from 7 to 6 with the ground going softer? I've just made my point. Do any of the others agree with me, or do they potentially agree with Phil?
I agree with you. I'm not really keen on him, and I can't really pinpoint why, but Stout doesn't seem to really place these handicappers very well. And you see a lot of these handicap horses that he puts in big 6, 7 furlong races, and they never really seem to win. And he seems to really relish the middle distance horses. I think he's better at those.
That's a good point, actually. I'm just about to check the Bunbury Cup. Is Abseil running on Saturday?
Yeah, I think so.
I just want to quickly check because I'm not here. Yeah, by the way, I'm not here tomorrow. You've got Luke back, so it's a good call.
But, I mean, even then, Abseil, I mean, we'll get on to that tomorrow, but that's just dreadful placing. I'd be amazed if he won.
Yeah, Abseil
There's
is
very interesting races.
Ooh.
You gone?
This Moss goes over.
Yeah, there's French racing. Yeah, you can mention that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom Woobsy has asked us a question. How long does it take to bike to Goodwood Racecourse? Depends where you're at. I don't know.
Will Kajani's asked a question. Well, two questions, in fact. Has Al Fakira been ignored, given that a mile may not have suited? Not going to lie, I don't care. Emerald Star wins that race.
Want softer ground, Alpha Kira, surely.
Yeah, my way of thinking about it is that she'd want softer ground, even over this trip as well. I mean, she didn't get a mile, but she's obviously well worth a drop back in trip, but just I think she needs softer ground. So, yeah, I agree with Callum on that point.
And the other question was, also at Newmarket, who's better suited by the likely dawdle of the three market leaders? He thinks it's going to be Sky Lantern, but I must admit, I think it's more the ground that's the bigger worry. I think the tactics of the race are going to become a bit irrelevant if the ground is just too bad for most of them.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think Sky Lantern will personally run. If it doesn't rain, and I could sound like a complete idiot after saying for the whole video it's going to rain, rain, and rain, that Sky Lantern will go and win tomorrow, and I was just like, oh dear, that didn't go very well. But yeah, I don't think her or Integral will run, so I just think Perlong is the one in that race for me anyway. Just seeing if I've got any more questions. Max Ban got in touch. Hi, Max. The Cherry Hinton looked an average renewal. Think Parsley may be overpriced at 9-1. I could make a case for Parsley. I quite liked her last time out, actually. I thought she ran okay. But in a weak Cherry Hinton, I just think that the favourite is bomb-proof. That maiden win was just so impressive at Shanty, and Andre Farr bringing her over, I think, is a good piece of placement by him anyway. So, do any of you give Parsley any chance?
Yeah, I'd give Parsley a squeak. I mean, her run second to the Kevin Ryan horse, where they all finished in a bit of a heap, and that was on softer ground. I mean, it says good to firm, but it absolutely poured it down before that race, and during that race, actually. And yeah, she ran well. I think she's probably the one I'd have for a forecast.
That's not a bad suggestion, actually. Our good friend Fries has asked a question. Apparently, I'm not allowed to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How did Michael's Tom's day go? Go to the beginning of the video. Actually, he didn't answer this bit. Is there another date on the card?
But I don't know. It's because he's skint now. He hasn't got any. Hasn't got any money, so we can't afford to go to Worcester again. So I'm looking for another Worcester buddy because we'll be skint.
Oh, bless. Okay, so before we finish, and I forgot this last night, and I got told off by our host Luke when he watched the video again that I'd forgotten naps. And have you got a Naughty Lucky 15 actually, Michael? If you've not, right,
I haven't.
Okay then. Have you got a nap for us though?
I honestly, I looked at the horses for Naughty Lucky 15 and had there's no imagination in any of these names tomorrow. I think all the owners should have a long, hard look at themselves and think, we are boring, aren't we? We are so boring. For the nap, it can only really be one horse, to be honest. I just can only think about one horse. I'm still worried about the 6 furlongs, but I'm still going to go there. My head slightly controlling my heart, although it's still a ridiculous price. Emerald Star.
And Callum, your nap, please.
I'm gonna go for Charles Molson.
That's a brave one. A big handicap
that's a very Adam kind of nap.
Yeah.
Luke sent us in a nap, and he's napped a horse at. Well, I'm at York tomorrow, so if anybody's at York tomorrow, come over and say hi. He's napped a horse in the 3:30 in the 1.5 mile handicap, and me and Luke both saw this horse win at Sandown. called King's Fate, and I really like him. Luke really likes him as well. James Doyle goes up there to obviously ride Jurors, but it's also interesting. Well, obviously he's going to take the ride on him because he's retained. Also going to put King's Fate up, but I'm actually going to do a double as well with the horse that actually came second to him. He runs in the 4:25 at Newmarket in Obsidian, and I think that he should be the one to beat in that maiden. So it'd be King's Fate and Obsidian in a double for me. Luke goes for King's Fate, Callum Charles Molson, and Michael has gone with Emerald Star. Thank you very much for watching tonight. The bad news for you guys is that I won't be here tomorrow, as I will be travelling back from York. The even worse news, the even worse news is that your regular host Luke Elder will be returning. Where you have 10 races. Well, they'll be going through 10 races, 6 handicaps, which means Michael's going to be in heaven. So thank you very much for watching, and they will be back tomorrow. I will be back next week. Until then, goodbye.